My friends, nations, much like people, often define themselves not by their victories, but by how they respond to their moments of doubt. Every generation inherits a world that seems to be tilting one way or another, toward opportunity or uncertainty, toward cooperation or competition, toward vision or fear. And when we look at the story unfolding before us today, between two of the world's great democracies, between two nations that together hold the hopes of billions, we are witnessing not just a contest of economies, but a test of understanding. Because America, in all its might and innovation, has always believed that it could outbuild, outthink, and outlead the world. For more than a century, that belief was earned. It was rooted in hard work, in openness, in a spirit that welcomed the best minds and allowed them to dream. But the world has changed, and the biggest mistake America might make in this century is assuming that the old rules still apply, that the same assumptions that built yesterday's world will carry it through tomorrow's. You see, across the ocean, a nation called India has been quietly reshaping what power means in the 21st century. It's not doing it through the might of armies or the pressure of alliances. It's doing it through ideas, through technology, through the sheer ambition of a billion dreams, refusing to settle for less. And that, my friends, is the kind of revolution that no tariff, no wall, no isolationist policy can contain. For a long time, America believed it could lead by setting the rules of the global game, by being the hub of innovation, the center of finance, the moral compass of democracy. But in the last few years, we've seen what happens when a nation forgets that leadership is not a birthright. It's a responsibility. When America turned inward, when it decided that fear was easier to sell than faith, when it chose to measure strength by how loudly it could threaten rather than how deeply it could listen, something shifted. India, on the other hand, began to rise not by copying the world, but by reimagining it. It began to connect its villages to the digital age, to build a payment system that became the envy of advanced economies, to invest in solar energy while others debated climate politics, to teach its youth that dignity is found in creation, not consumption. While many nations were talking about the future, India was building it. And this is where America's next big mistake could lie, in underestimating that kind of transformation, because history has shown us again and again that no superpower remains unchallenged when it stops questioning itself. Rome had its walls. Britain had its empire. America has its technology and its influence. But India has something rarer: momentum and purpose at the same time. And when those two forces converge, they don't just create progress, they create permanence. Now, let's be clear. America and India are not enemies. They are not destined to collide, but they are destined to define the balance of this century. The question is whether that balance will be cooperative or competitive, whether it will lift nations together or divide them into camps of privilege and resentment. And that choice, more than any trade deal or defense pact, will decide who leads the world when this century ends. Because the real power of a nation has never been its GDP. It's been its ability to inspire others to follow its example. For decades, America inspired the world by showing what freedom and innovation could achieve. But lately, that light has dimmed, not because the people lost their will, but because the system lost its humility. When a nation forgets that leadership requires listening, when it confuses dominance with destiny, it begins to alienate the very world it hopes to lead. India, meanwhile, has taken a different route. It has chosen inclusion over isolation, dialogue over dictation, partnerships over patronage. It's not trying to dominate the world, it's trying to participate in it on equal terms. And that makes all the difference. Because the future doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest. It belongs to those who can bring the most people along. You look at India's growth. its digital economy reaching every corner, its engineers redefining innovation, its diaspora shaping industries from Silicon Valley to Singapore, and you realize something profound. This isn't just an economic story. It's a civilizational reawakening. It's a country that once gave the world zero, now teaching the world how to multiply value. It's a culture that has understood that technology without humanity is just machinery, and that progress without empathy is just speed without direction. And yet, America, instead of embracing this transformation as a partner, often treats it as a competitor to contain. That, my friends, is the mistake. Because no wall, no policy, no geopolitical calculus can contain a nation that's powered by its people's aspirations. You can compete with a company. You can sanction a government. But you cannot stop an idea whose time has come. And India today is that idea in motion. Look at what's happening in the Indo-Pacific. Nations are redefining alliances, not based on who can build the biggest fleet, but on who can build the strongest trust. India's naval outreach, its strategic partnerships from Africa to Southeast Asia, its leadership in disaster relief and humanitarian aid, these are not the acts of a follower. These are the steps of a nation that understands that stability is not imposed, it's earned. Meanwhile, America finds itself in a paradox of its own making. It wants to lead the world in innovation, but restricts talent from entering its borders. It wants to uphold democracy, but lets division corrode its unity. It wants to promote freedom abroad, but struggles to sustain fairness at home. These contradictions are not fatal, but they are warning signs. And if America ignores them, it may one day wake up to find that leadership has quietly moved elsewhere, not taken, but earned by those who still believe in it. India, by contrast, is showing the world that growth and democracy can coexist, that development need not come at the cost of diversity, that a nation can be modern without losing its soul. In an age when many countries equate progress with power, India reminds us that true progress lies in possibility, in the ability of every citizen, from a farmer in Punjab to a coder in Bengaluru, to imagine a better tomorrow and to work for it. Now, let's talk about something deeper, the moral equation of leadership. Because when you strip away all the GDP numbers, the defense budgets, the economic forecasts, what truly defines a nation's greatness is not what it has, but what it gives. America's greatest gift to the world was never its wealth, it was its ideals. Liberty, equality, opportunity. But ideals, if not renewed, become slogans. And slogans, if not practiced, become relics. India, on the other hand, is renewing its ideals through action by championing renewable energy while others retreat from global commitments. By using digital infrastructure to empower, not exploit, by balancing growth with gratitude, power with patience, and that's what's earning it respect. Not fear, but admiration. Not obedience, but partnership. And so, when we ask why America might fear India's rise, we must look beyond the economics. It's not the GDP gap that's unsettling. It's the shifting moral gravity of global influence. When a nation like India, with a history of colonial subjugation, can now stand tall as a voice of fairness and self-reliance, it sends a message that echoes far beyond its borders. Leadership is no longer inherited. It's earned through integrity. This doesn't mean America's story is over. Far from it. But it does mean that the world no longer revolves around one capital, one currency, or one culture. Power today is distributed, not concentrated. And the nations that understand this will lead not through control, but through collaboration. America's next big mistake, if it's not careful, will be forgetting that collaboration is the currency of modern leadership. Because look at the pattern. Every time America tries to assert dominance through pressure rather than partnership, it finds itself isolated. Whether it's in trade wars, climate talks, or digital policy, the nations of the global South are now finding their own voice. And India, with its balance of ambition and restraint, is helping shape that voice. It's saying to the world, respect us, and we will build with you. Undermine us, and we will build without you. That's not arrogance, that's agency. And the more America resists that new reality, the more it risks pushing the world into an era of fragmented trust. But if it recognizes it, if it sees India not as a rival, as a partner in purpose, then both nations can rise higher together than either could alone. Because when a billion minds work not in competition, but in cooperation, the future becomes not a contest, but a collaboration. In the end, this isn't just a story about two countries. It's about two ways of seeing the world, one that clings to control and another that believes in coexistence. One that defines success by dominance and another that defines it by dignity. The 21st century will reward the latter. Because in a world that's more connected than ever, the only sustainable power is shared power. India understands this. It's building an economy where innovation comes from inclusion, where growth comes from grassroots, where leadership comes not from lineage, but from learning. And that is precisely why America should not fear India's rise. It should learn from it. Because the same principles that once made America great, openness, courage, faith in people, are the very principles driving India today. So yes, America's next big mistake might be underestimating India, but that mistake is not inevitable. It's a choice between clinging to the past or embracing the partnership that defines the future, between defending the illusion of dominance or accepting the opportunity of shared destiny. Because the world we are building is not one of walls and weapons. It's one of wires and wisdom. It's not about who can shout the loudest, but who can listen the longest. And when you listen, truly listen, you realize that the center of gravity in the 21st century is not a place, but a principled respect. India has earned that respect through perseverance, through patience, through progress made not in the glare of cameras, but in the quiet of classrooms, laboratories, and hearts. It is showing the world that leadership is not about ruling others, but about empowering them. That greatness is not about size, but about spirit. So, as the world watches this balance of power evolve, one truth remains clear. Those who build bridges will always outlast those who build walls. And those who lead through respect will always outshine those who lead through fear. That, my friends, is the lesson of this century. And it is being written right now in the story of India. Leadership fades when it stops learning from those it leads. Throughout history, the greatest leaders have not been those who spoke the loudest or commanded the most power, but those who listened deeply, observed carefully, and drew strength from the people they served. The relationship between a leader and the led is not a one-way flow of instruction. It is a living exchange of insight, experience, and perspective. When a leader ceases to learn, they cease to grow. And when they cease to grow, they lose touch with the very spirit that once gave their leadership meaning. True leadership is never about asserting superiority. It is about cultivating understanding. Every community, every nation, and every movement is made up of people who hold different truths, shaped by their own experiences and struggles. A wise leader recognizes that wisdom does not only flow downward from the top, but upward from the lives of ordinary people. It is in the stories of workers, farmers, teachers, soldiers, and dreamers that the real pulse of a nation is found. A leader who listens to that pulse governs not by assumption, but by empathy. When leaders begin to believe that their position grants them omniscience, their decisions start to drift away from reality. They stop asking questions, stop seeking feedback, and start surrounding themselves with echoes of their own beliefs. This is how leadership fades, not through external opposition, but through internal stagnation. The distance between the ruler and the ruled widens, and trust erodes quietly, one unheeded voice at a time. A leader's strength lies not in appearing flawless, but in being willing to learn from mistakes, to adapt, and to grow through the wisdom of others. In every field, politics, business, education, or community building, the principle remains the same. The moment a leader assumes they have nothing left to learn, they begin to fail the very people who trusted them. Leadership, in its truest form, is a dialogue. It thrives on curiosity, humility, and connection. Great leaders invite dissent, value criticism, and treat every perspective as a potential source of insight. They do not demand blind loyalty. They inspire informed collaboration. Because the more a leader learns from their people, the more they earn the right to lead them. In times of change or crisis, this lesson becomes even more vital. When uncertainty grips a nation or an organization, the temptation to centralize control can be strong. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that the wisdom of the collective becomes indispensable. No single person, no matter how intelligent or visionary, can grasp the full complexity of a world in flux. Leaders who embrace learning as a constant practice are able to navigate ambiguity with greater resilience. They recognize that their people are not obstacles to be managed, but partners to be empowered. The most enduring leaders throughout time, those whose legacies continue to inspire, were students of humanity before they were masters of authority. They paid attention to the quiet voices, the subtle signs, the overlooked insights. They treated their leadership not as a destination, but as a continuous journey of discovery. Every conversation, every failure, every act of courage from those around them added to their understanding. They learned not just how to lead better, but why to lead at all. Leadership that refuses to learn inevitably breeds alienation. When those being led no longer feel heard, they withdraw their energy, their creativity, and their belief in the system. Bureaucracies grow thicker, communication breaks down, and cynicism replaces trust. What was once a shared mission becomes a rigid hierarchy. The leader, isolated at the top, may still give orders, but those orders no longer inspire. They echo into silence because they no longer resonate with the lived experiences of the people. To prevent this fading, leaders must cultivate humility as their compass. Humility is not weakness, it is awareness. It is the understanding that knowledge is endless and that leadership is most effective when it draws from the collective intelligence of all. A humble leader listens not to respond, but to understand. They acknowledge that every person they lead holds a fragment of truth that can illuminate a better path forward. In doing so, they transform leadership from an act of control into an act of service. Learning from those one leads also means creating spaces where honesty can thrive. A culture that punishes questioning or discourages feedback is one that seals its own decline. When people feel safe to speak truth to power, the leader gains insight that cannot be found in reports or speeches. These truths are sometimes uncomfortable, but they are essential. They reveal blind spots, expose weaknesses, and point towards solutions that no single mind could invent alone. The best leaders know that listening to discomfort is often the price of progress. Moreover, the idea that leadership must always project certainty is a myth that weakens its authenticity. People do not follow leaders because they never doubt. They follow them because they face doubt with openness and courage. A leader who admits they do not have all the answers invites collaboration. This act of vulnerability strengthens trust because it reminds everyone that leadership is not about perfection, it is about purpose. And that purpose is best served when every person's voice contributes to the whole. When leadership becomes too insulated, it begins to mistake compliance for consensus. It starts to value efficiency over understanding and appearances over authenticity. But real progress demands patience. The patience to listen, to engage, and to learn even from those who disagree. The ability to learn from criticism, to evolve through dialogue, and to admit when change is necessary separates enduring leadership from transient power. Power without learning is like a flame without fuel. It burns bright for a moment, then fades into ash. The world today demands leaders who can learn from both the wisdom of tradition and the innovation of youth. The older generations carry experience. The younger generations carry imagination, and leadership must weave them together. A nation or an organization that silences either voice weakens its foundation. The most visionary leaders understand that progress comes from this blend of insight and energy. They listen not only to experts, but to ordinary citizens, not only to allies, but to critics. Through that inclusivity of learning, they ensure that leadership remains relevant, resilient, and rooted in reality. Learning from those one leads also redefines power itself. It shifts it from domination to collaboration, from authority to partnership. It acknowledges that leadership is not a crown to be worn, but a responsibility to be shared. When people feel that their ideas matter, they invest themselves fully in the collective mission. The energy of a nation or an organization multiplies when everyone feels they are not merely being led, but that they are part of the leadership. In the end, leadership that listens becomes leadership that lasts. The ability to evolve with one's people ensures not only continuity, but renewal. It keeps the flame of purpose alive across generations, across challenges, across time. Because a leader who keeps learning never becomes outdated, never becomes irrelevant. They adapt, they grow, and they inspire others to do the same. The measure of leadership is not how long it commands authority, but how deeply it continues to learn from the humanity it seeks to guide.